Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm really glad to be here with you. Thanks for helping me. I've been so sick for off and on for months, but the past 2 months were extra difficult, and I really couldn't have done it without you. So many of you gave me so many beautiful blessings of healings and prayers and love, and that always really makes a difference. It's quite amazing how we can lift one another up. And in all of this journey around healing and illness, um, it really dawned on me, it's the new paradigm of healing, and quantum healing is on the table. So I'll be teaching a class over the next 7 months. Once a month, we're going to get together and talk about different attributes and aspects of quantum healing and how to actually do it. And I hope that you'll be able to combine it with what you do already. So we're going to be talking a bit about that too. We're going to cover addiction as well, and my very unusual take on addiction and how to work around the sacred communions of the earth. So if that interests you, I'll be sending an email out later this weekend about it. And I hope you'll join me because it's going to be a very interesting class. And I'm going to turn all of what we do and all of what I've taught before into a book so that you can start running your own quantum healing business, because the more healers, the better, right? Certainly discovered that while being so sick. So that was my only admin announcement today, but mainly just to thank you for being patient and caring and loving over the past 2 months as I've missed our community calls, which this is my favorite thing to do with you. And missing it was just tragic, honestly. And I missed a lot more. I missed my daughter's birthday party. I missed so much. So, you know, this is the tough part. But I also learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself and why I'm here. I mean, when you're in that kind of pain, I was really at a over the top level pain, which is really saying something for me. If you've listened to me before, you hear me talk a lot about my life and my personal experiences, and then I like to take it up to the universal when we get together like this. So that won't be different today. But in this discovery of pain that I've been in for my lifetime this time, with a body that has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and a pretty gnarly version of it, where I dislocate my joints all the time and I'm pulling muscles out constantly. Right now, my left arm's all pulled out, and this is just one of those days. But when you're in pain normally and then you experience pain that's beyond your threshold, it has to be really extreme. And that's what happened. So it takes you into an altered state because pain is so powerful. It's full of light, and the brain doesn't differentiate between emotional and physical pain. And that fact actually can help us when we are experiencing tough stuff. The fact that your brain can't differentiate emotional or physical pain, you can use that to your advantage. And so it took me into an altered state where I could really do more self examination, which I do anyway as a lifestyle. And I highly suggest going into self inquiry as a lifestyle. You know, what does that look like? Well, when something's happening that triggers you, for example, and you say that person is blank, whatever word comes up, a judgment, we point the finger at ourselves and we say, well, how am I a tyrant? How am I a narcissist? How am I selfish? How am I mean? How have I done this? And when you're around folks who don't do self inquiry, you can see this externalization of their reality going on. Everything is either with them or against them, right? And that's an illusion. So when you're in that kind of level of pain, emotional, mental, physical pain, it causes you to sort of disassociate a bit. Now, disassociation is a superpower. I think it kind of gets a bad rap because we do it when we're traumatized a lot, but we also do it when we're in deep pleasure as well. So, disassociation, when used properly as a mystical skill, can actually be helpful. And that's what I did. I used it purposefully to examine my field, to examine my situation, to take a look at what am I drawing in? I'm creating this for a reason. Why? And part of it was because I had a big chunk of information I needed to bring through around healing that I hadn't got yet, that we'll be discussing in our Quantum Healing Revolution course. But the other piece was that I had my skill set kind of wrong. Like, I talk about being a psychic. I think that one's obvious. And I do healing. I'm a pretty good healer. I can't say that I'm the best or that that's my main dharma or pathway or purpose. I always thought really that I was supposed to be a warrior, and I've been at war for 40 years. I grew up in a family of spiritual warriors and actual warriors, surrounded in them. I have lived on army bases all over the world. I've been surrounded in war. My whole life that we have been at war for 40 years in the United States. And it's been really, really hard because I believed that that was what I needed to be doing. So I've done a lot of war. I've done a lot of uh, for and against. I've done a lot of othering, and especially with the demonic. And so I've learned a lot. I've learned about mercy. I've learned about the power of neutrality as one of the greatest tools that we have as human beings. But I am not supposed to be a warrior. I'm too formless. I'm so formless. I absorb everything. Literally, I'm physically formless. So, the disease that I have, which is a special disease, it's really important for those of you who have connective tissue issues to think about this in this way. My blueprint for collagen is wrong. So, even if I eat collagen, it doesn't matter. My body doesn't know what to do with it. So, when the building blocks of your house have holes in them, then they easily fall apart, but they're also really, really formless and they could absorb anything, right? That's a mystical superpower too. So I can absorb any frequency. I can absorb and merge with anything, pretty much. There's some things I found that I couldn't merge with, stuff that was just too big, right? Far bigger and older than me. So, be wise about this concept of merger. It's tricky and you need to be careful because you're not, say, merging with demons, you're merging with frequencies. But I'm also very formless and can absorb particulates into my blood and other things like that. The formlessness also goes the other way in that medicine that I take actually I process it too fast, right? So one time I had to go into the hospital and I needed painkillers and the painkillers went through I might as well just drank Kool-Aid. Like it just went straight through me. Morphine doesn't do anything to me. It literally goes right through me. Um so so then like holding on to any energy for my body is really hard too. So I'm kind of like this being of great osmosis. There's a lot moving back and forth and out of me. And my goal and the goal that I was shown was that I'm not supposed to fix this problem. I'm supposed to stop resisting the power of formlessness. And when we stop resisting, then we experience less pain. And this is really key because when you go into pain, it's full of power. And when you go into emotional pain, there's incredible power. And when you get to the bottom of it and you acclimate to it, then it has no more power over you, but rather you have absorbed the power because now you have the knowledge and wisdom that it takes to be able to face one of these aspects of the universe. So the reason I'm putting this on the table is because I'm getting to a point around projections and how you and myself, how we actually absorb or end up dealing with projections from others and how we draw those projections in. And they're often painful. And so people are distorted by their trauma. They're distorted by their trying to nail down a problem outside themselves when it's not outside of you, it is you. And so this is tricky because it's really important right now that we consider these aspects of power and pain, especially over the next 6 months, as the waves of consciousness are now beyond the heart chakra and coming into the solar plexus, into the power centers of the human body. When it hits the root, the divine feminine is going to have an explosive representation on this planet and will take the reins of power back from the oligarchs. And there's going to be the feminine saying, enough. But before that, there's going to be a whole lot of energy revved up to make that reaction occur because the solar plexus to the root is full of human power centers. So as consciousness, these waves of consciousness move through these power centers, you're going to have some serious reckoning around power. How have you been misusing power by having power over things, right? How have you been, even subtle stuff? I kind of take a pretty Buddhist approach to this, and I'm leaning more and more towards a simpler lifestyle that's very in tune with nature and really kind of having a reckoning around my own experiences with my body and food, and the basics have to be readdressed. And this is a reckoning of power. I have power over the animals on my farm. Am I using that wisely to give them the best lives that they can have? And these are really important questions to ask in a basic way and a more complex way. Do you have power over the relationships you are in? How have you drawn in tyrants who have power over you? Why? Why are you holding that end of the rope? Holding the end of the rope and saying, I'm your victim. We make these choices constantly in our micro navigation of consciousness. So we need to have this reckoning of power. And part of it is to ask yourself, and this is the fun part, what superpowers do you have? My ability to be so formless is a superpower. There's nothing wrong. I am not wrong. My body's not wrong. This is important. Your body's not wrong. Pain is not wrong. Suffering is not wrong. I think to say that we want to go into a life where there is no suffering is honestly madness because that's not how the universe works. Suffering is important. Suffering is full of information, power, glory, incredible wisdom. If I hadn't suffered so much in my life, I would not be right here, speaking to you at all. I would have probably become a, basic anthropology 101 professor at a community college or something. I wouldn't be doing this with you. I wouldn't be traversing consciousness to the edge and going with you on that journey because suffering has made it clear to me who I am and what I'm here to do. And in the suffering over the past few months, the extreme physical pain I've been in, that has actually made it very clear to me that I'm not here to be a warrior, that I have to stop fighting. Now, some of you might be being called to start fighting, to start standing in your power, to start becoming a warrior and a commander of your life and your household. But for me, I've been doing that for 40 straight years and I have to stop now because I'm here to be a teacher. And I know that now, but only because of suffering. So I wouldn't be evolving without it. It's one of the most important, powerful energies that has helped my evolution. It's the number one most important, has been my physical suffering. And it's light, it's a gift. I give it to you. I give it away. I let it radiate from me, and I literally imagine it going out to you as a little gift, like a little marshmallow with wings, a little treat, a little thank you, a little gratitude. I give it. I give my pain away. It's jewels, it's pearls, and it's full of energy and light. And because I don't hate pain, it's pure. So I can give it away as a gift all the time, all day long. And you can too. So here I actually value really deeply that I've been at war for 40 years. Because now, those of you who are ready to be warriors, I've got your back. I have information. I know what to do. I know how to do stuff so that you don't get in trouble and that you are more and more safe, more and more standing in your power, feeling empowered, knowing that nothing has power over you unless you decide to hold the end of the rope. I've learned this. I literally have pretty much gone up against at the darkest of the dark. I know what it takes. And I think that it's going to be really interesting if anything else shows up in my life because a lot of what was happening the past couple of months was very dark and demonic, extremely dark stuff. But I'm also really used to it. I grew up like this. And the demonic has come and, messed with me since I was a little bitty kid. So, you know, good for them. They messed with the person who was going to end up sharing and teaching people how to deal with them finally once and for all. Hopefully humanity will stand in their power and say enough. No more of this. No more slavery, no more absorbing negative energy. Get off our planet and get out of our bodies. That's what I'm hoping will happen over the next year or few years. And I'm here. I have tools, I have knowledge, I've seen it all. Nothing surprises me really anymore. I think I get mainly surprised by, wow, I thought I knew what really bad pain was and now I know. Or like, wow, I thought 10 was my top level. Nope, there's a 12. So that's what's been surprising me lately. Like, wow, I didn't know I could hurt even more. But I do actually laugh about this stuff literally. Um, because I kind of have a dark sense of humor. You end up laughing at the dark after a while because the dark's just made of light under pressure, and they forget that stuff and they think that they're, all that. And My mom would say, "You think that you're a hot snot on a silver platter, but you're really a cold booger on a paper plate." It's such a mom thing, mom joke. But that's what they think, the darkness wants to have power over you. And really, if you look at it carefully, it's not dark at all. It's just under a lot of pressure and it thinks it's going to pull you into that game of pressure. So you have to decide if you're going to play that game or not. Every day, all the time, you're micro navigating this world and there's a lot of imbalance. But it's important for you also to feel solidarity, to feel the unity. But this is where we have to talk about projections because it's really hard for you to feel unity when you're projecting stuff on people or they're projecting it on you. So we need to be very careful to unravel the passive aggression that we've been trained to be in. This passive aggressive stuff has to stop because it is going to destroy the unity of the people who are standing in the light. Projections are painful. They're very dense. They're very distorting. And when someone projects on you, you can feel it. And normally we go into defense mode and we want to say, "Hey, wait, stop. I don't want you to project on me. I'm not like that. Don't do that." That's a sort of typical way we manage projections. It's an automatic response. Something hits you like a projection, then you automatically want to defend yourself and say, "Stop. No, that's not me. Don't do that. Do it this other way." Grab hold of it. Grab hold of it and say, "Oh, wow, you just sent me something. I drew this in. I drew this projection in." Take responsibility for being a creator. You drew the projection in. You drew the words in. You drew that person, that situation in. Why? That's what you need to ask. Don't worry about the other person. They're a creator too. But if you're not in defense mode, they're going to be pretty curious because they're expecting you to be, right? All you have to do is take it as a gift and say, "Well, you're saying that I am this way. That's very interesting. I wonder why." And then ask yourself, are you really that way? Really suss it out, but make it an inner journey. Probably, maybe you're not, but you need to look at it anyway because you drew it in and it hit you. If it hits you, then that means that there's structure there. You want to look at that. You drew it in so that you could see the structure in the way of your next breakthrough. So we're heading towards more formlessness on purpose. My body's kind of leading me on the way because it's already formless. But as I move into being more my soul, I'm finding these structures, they're very painful. Oh my goodness. Incredibly deep wounds are up for review. There's a reckoning of the heart that has occurred. Look at your wounds. You're drawing everything in so that you can see your wounds and the structures and everything that needs to be turned into formless light. So take responsibility for drawing things in, for being a creator being. Look very carefully at what people say to you. It doesn't mean it's true, but if it hits you, if you have a reaction to it, then look at that. That's what you need to see. And it might be, "Oh, wow, I'm like really defensive when people say that I'm that I'm this way. Wow, where did this defense come from? This is really dense stuff. It really keeps getting pinged in me. Why do I need to defend myself? Exactly. Do I feel like I'm at war with my own friends and family? Do I feel like I'm at war with my own culture? Where did that come from? Keep noticing it, inquire into it, unravel it. And what you'll find is a process. It could be trauma, it could be assumptions, it could be expectations you have, could be attachments to certain things. Own that, unravel them, and then the next projection comes and it moves straight through you. And the only reaction you need to have is, well, that's very interesting. Don't don't own other people's stuff. People need to be doing their work. And if they're not, it'll be obvious. And you can say, hey, there's this whole process around self inquiry that might really help you feel better, where you can become a creator being. Does that sound cool to you? Do you want to be a creator being? Do you want to own you and your life? Do you want to have stuff stop having power over you? Right? I mean, this is pretty intriguing stuff. If you're like, wow, your anger and your disappointments seem to have a lot of power over you. I bet you're pretty tired of that. That's intriguing. People are going to be like, what do you mean? What do you know that I don't know? This is a lifestyle, and projections are shattering right now. The reason I'm talking about them is because if you have any, the clear light of existence is coming for you. Any glass walls or eggshells or bubbles or boundaries that are inappropriate, there are inappropriate boundaries. Like, oh, you can't talk like that. You're not allowed to say this. That's inappropriate. We have freedom for a reason. And if somebody says something that makes you mad, then what do? You look at why it made you mad. I mean, this stuff's precious. Somebody said to me, I wish everybody just needs to stop fighting. I'm like, have you paid attention to astrophysics lately? That's not exactly how it works in this universe. Stuff gets destroyed all the time. Because how else is it going to get to go home? So saying we're going to end all fighting isn't going to work. That's unrealistic. You can't be afraid of destruction. Destruction's your ticket home. What you should focus on is what you're going to create. What are you creating? What are you drawing in to create? Are you creating more trauma for yourself? Are you creating more joy? The void is at your fingertips, my friends. The clear light of symmetry and consciousness. The clarity is coming, and it will reveal the truth. It will reveal how lied to we have been. It will reveal the true history of the earth, which is like the funnest history, by the way. I might teach another class about that because I just like talking about it. And since I'm going to be in teacher mode, why not? And I want to know, what else do you want me to talk about? Give me an email. Send me an email at elizabeth@seerandscientist.com and tell me. I might not answer you back, but because I get a lot of emails. But if you want to tell me, hey, I want you to teach classes about this stuff, pretty much everything's on the table. That's the cool part about the work I do. I've got I've got a trillion fingers in the library. I'm a great owl. I can go and find the books that you want and go through it and talk about what's available in consciousness right now. So, pretty much any topic is available for us to really get deep into and reveal more. That's the cool part about all this. I don't know anything. I just ask the source field because that's where the library is. And by releasing and relinquishing everything I know, I actually got a permanent position in the library of consciousness. So be willing to throw out everything you think you know. It's more fun anyway, because then you're constantly amazed. I think it's important. We have to throw this stuff out because we're going to relearn everything anyway, and it's going to be way better. And if we have old physics and old concepts and things that don't exist like dark matter on our plate, then we're not going to be able to rebuild the planet. We need to do it with the right physics, ether physics, and torsion and proper understandings of the laws of the universe. That's all coming. It's all available to you. It's under your feet. The Earth itself is also the planet Lyra. Those two planets were merged as one, and Lyra is the place where all the blueprints of the cool stuff in every dimension are. That's why everybody's after this planet. It's not just the gold, it's not just the human bodies or the precious metals or the jewels. No, no, no. No. It is actually the greatest library of multidimensional consciousness available. Makes Alexandria's library look like a kid's bookshelf. What's under your feet is everything you need. It's everything we need to survive this shift. The electromagnetic field of the Earth is continuing to exponentially disappear. It's beyond 30% gone now. So if you're feeling weird, so are all the other animals and plants on the planet too, and it will continue to affect you. But if you're in self inquiry and you're meditating and you're doing emotional processing, then you're well on your way to actually having some fun at the apocalypse. Why not? This is why I like to show up at the end of every age because I'm your cheerleader. I want to cheer you on and say, you can do it. You can survive this and thrive and evolve and become Homo luminous. We can create a virtue based culture of compassion on this planet and up level our bodies on purpose. That's where we're heading. That's what's on the table. More than any other age, because there's more people on the planet than there ever were, all at once at the end of every age. Honestly, it's all the people combined, probably, that were at the end of every age. So there's a lot of folks here. A lot of people are checking out. That happens at the end of every age. There's a myriad of reasons, a long list. There's not just one reason. The part of it's that the earth is changing so much and she's becoming formless too. And when you're that formless, you start kind of stretching around and figuring out, what am I going to align to next? And that's what's happening with the weather and volcanoes and the earthquakes and all kinds of disasters. Think of the earth like being like, all right, whew, I was holding that configuration for a while. Now I'm going to do a new one. This is her reset chance, and she has to do it every 12,000 years because she hangs on. But the galaxy is moving all this energy from the center in a big, beautiful wave of power, and it affects everything. I mean, our whole solar system's going nuts. Everything's changing. Just look all of that up because all the planets in our solar system are going crazy. I mean, Pluto's lost like 25% of its atmosphere already. Neptune and Uranus are acting up. Jupiter's heating up. Mars is starting to go crazy. Stuff's going on. It's not just us, right? But this is that cycle. It's that galactic cycle that we came for because this is your chance. The last chance you had to become a new species was when Homo erectus became Homo sapien 800,000 years ago. And now it's our chance to do it again. Can you believe that? It's so crazy. We're already at 800,000 years. We did a full circle. That's wild. And here you are. You got invited to become a new species. You know who will do it first is the women. So, the first Homo sapiens were female, and the women will lead the way because we're conduits. We're more formless. We're conduits of the voice of the earth. We're conduits of the collective consciousness of humanity. So, you ladies, you really need to make sure and open the root, clear any trauma there, work really hard on stilling your mental body, meditate, and you guys really keep opening your heart and nurturing and nourishing nature and the feminine the best that you can, whatever way you can do that. Because if you can make sure that the feminine is strong, then the feminine will lead the way into this new era. And they'll help to heal the doorway that has to open, where men and women work together to do this. Right now, the feminine doesn't feel powerful or empowered enough or supported or nurtured enough to be able to do that opening, and neither does the masculine. So, you guys focus on benevolence, the men out there, the masculine, the representatives of the masculine. Focus on benevolence, focus on balancing out your cycles with the sun. You have cycles too, and they're solar. Balance out your relationship with the natural and the feminine. Recognize that the feminine is under your feet and feeds you every day and has held you. She catches you when you fall. So get back to that attitude of what is benevolence? Benevolence isn't soft, you guys. Benevolence is hardcore. Benevolence is the energy of no, enough. You can't be doing that anymore. You are screwing everything up. No, you can't plant the tree there. It won't thrive. No, you can't do that to kids. They won't thrive. That's benevolence. Benevolence is not passivity. Benevolence is like unconditional love. Everyone's like, oh, unconditional love. And I'm like, if you think it's soft and cute, then you have no idea what you're talking about. Unconditional love is unconditional, it's hardcore. That means that you have unconditional love for even the evilest of the evil. It's hardcore. Unconditional love is a rain of beautiful light that doesn't stop no matter what's going on. It's not a spray hose with a nozzle that you can turn off when somebody pisses you off. It's unconditional. So benevolence is similar. It's an incredible, powerful tool that cuts through illusion and works towards this concept of higher good. Higher good, that concept comes from Aristotle. It's not a new age term. I used to be really annoyed by it, and then I started reading Aristotle, and I was like, oh, I don't know why I'm annoyed by this. I mean, it's an ancient Greek concept, higher good. So I learned. But this concept of higher good is what benevolence and unconditional love are all about. And the other tool, the other factor with it is consent. And we don't practice consent properly. When you call up your friend and you vent, did you ask? Did you say, "Hey, I got stuff on my chest. Do you have space and energy and time for me?" You didn't give him a chance to say no. Here you're in a discussion or an argument or a communication, and when you're listening to somebody, and if you properly and appropriately mirror it back, and they finally feel heard, then you ask consent. May I share my perspective on this? So we need to really get with the consent piece with our communication. Let's start there, right? And then be wise about what you're consenting to. Do you realize that when you absorb media, entertainment, that you're consenting to what was in it, even if it was fictional? Think about that. Be very conscious about what you pull in for entertainment. It's actually affects the embodiment and the subconscious dramatically. When you watch a screen, it bypasses your frontal lobe and goes straight into your subconscious. That's why we have been convinced to have screens in our hands all the time. Don't let yourself remain plugged into the subconscious control grid. Instead, put your attention on what's real, what is nature and the elements. The more you attend to that, and by the way, it's highly entertaining. I mean, have you all watched chickens? I call it chicken TV. It's so funny. They're hilarious. How would you know that? Because I don't watch TV, I watch chickens. I watch the birds in my yard. They're amazing. We saw 17 wood storks fly up from our mountain, from the valley, all the way up and over the mountain, migrating to the coast. It was incredible. Nature TV is your best TV. Get out there and pay attention. The other most entertaining thing to watch is other humans. Literally, I mean, I didn't have a lot to do as a teenager, so I would sit out in front of the mall and just watch people. Back when you could go into an airport, I would go sit in an airport and I'd watch people. I'd watch them see their friends and their family. I'd draw pictures of them. Humans are amazing and they're really entertaining to watch. And if you do it with a pure heart, you'll never be bored. You'll learn stuff. You might meet new people and learn new things. Ask strangers about themselves. Go sit and talk to the homeless folks. Go serve at a soup kitchen. Stop watching your screen. It's bad for you. It's not real, and we know it's not real because what do you do when you do videos on there? You know, This is why I like to do community calls because I try to be as real as I can and I talk about my problems and I talk about real life. I literally talk like this. This is like we're all sitting at a table having a heart to heart. I just happen to be the main one talking. I see your chats, of course, but if we were all together, I'd be listening too. And really, really deeply enthralled at what you've been going through as well and comparing notes and how do you navigate that and what's the next big breakthrough you've had and wow, you are amazing. I love humanity. I want to share that love with you. So I'm here cheering you on as your friend. This is how I would talk to you anyway. So we try to be as authentic as we can and and own our stuff. And I just love it when people are like, I don't know. I'm like, that is so awesome. I love when people are like, I don't know. I loved it when all my professors would say, well, I don't know. Because that means that humanity hasn't figured out the entire universe yet. We have a lot more entertainment to be having, learning more about the truth of the universe. If you don't know something, then that's an invitation to another little part of the universe that didn't get seen by your soul in particular. So the realms of I don't know are my favorite spots. Those are the parts of the library that I'm totally obsessed with. Really think about that. What do you not know that you kind of want to know today? So that's kind of where I'm at with what's happening with humanity and how we can deal with this whole power dynamic that's going to be unraveling. Here in Ecuador, where I live, basically the government's falling apart, but it actually happens here a lot. And it's because of the nature of the landscape. We're in the Andes. So when the native people don't get their needs met, they cut the roads off. And it works. It's mostly nonviolent. Um, and it's really powerful because the roads are the arteries of this country. And they've tossed out tons of presidents just blocking roads. Tons. And they stand in their power and they're saying, nope, nope, you can't have this kind of control over us. So, talk about a reckoning of power going on. That's what's happening here in this country. And it's very interesting to watch. So, the other piece too is that we're quite safe here. Ecuador's very safe. It's the big cities that aren't as safe. And that's like any big city. But the rest of it's all very provincial. And, you know, I get my food from about a 50-mile radius here. So, and it's a year-round growing season. So we don't have to worry too much about most stuff. Like we might be out of rice for a while, but most of what is here. And it's something you can receive pretty easily. So that's really interesting how all of that works here. Every country is has a third player. It's not just us and them type of stuff. The third player is the planet herself. She and her terrain determine human culture very powerfully. Ask yourself about that. How does your terrain determine your culture? How does the road access or the way that goods and services are brought in determine your culture? If you're getting food that's mainly 500 to 5,000 miles away, and then the diesel prices go up and then they stop making diesel, what's going to happen? Think these things through because preparing for these sorts of things is key, especially now. So, really begin to prepare. And many of you know that I come from a preparedness family. My father actually professionally teaches this stuff, mostly for free to communities and churches and families and governments. But the basics are simply have enough food for a couple of weeks and the ability to get clean water one way or another, or store your water. So think ahead right now, if you can, the best that you can. Just do whatever you can. If you can find a whole bunch of cans of soup on sale, grab them. You know, there's like this amazing coupon culture and the United States too. Take advantage of that. Do what you can and be willing to share. Preparedness is not violent. Preparedness is about, hey, surplus food makes society work. That's a fact. That's an anthropological fact. But then you won't feel like you're out of power, right? Then you won't feel so helpless. When you think things through, even if it's the 0.001% possibility, right? When you think it through, then you'll be covered because you already thought it through. That's important. And then there's less fear. My youngest daughter, told me two things that were really, really funny about this because I was talking to them about preparedness. And here in Ecuador, our biggest issue around disaster is earthquakes. And our 100-year-old rammed earth house in the middle of the mountains, it survived a 7.3 and it didn't do anything. She did this little dance and not even a tile fell off the roof. It was really funny. It was crazy because the doors are like going like this, but the whole house was like, "Yeah, I've done this before. I can handle this. I'm 100 years old." So I was teaching my kids a little more about preparedness, and I had bought some neodymium magnets, very expensive, powerful magnets, some 32 pounders, right? And my middle child, who's almost 8, was messing with the magnets, and I said, "Stop! You shouldn't be messing with them. They're dangerous." Because they're really, really heavy. I'm actually making something I'll tell you about in a minute that you all could make too if you want to create new electromagnetic fields to protect my farmland and to up the yield of the food that grows on this property in the mountains. And so I'm thinking about probably just making the designs open source so you can mess with it yourself. Um, but it part of what I modified it around was the magnetics. So I bought these really powerful 32 pound. I mean, that's like a whole dog, right? Trying to separate these things is really hard. Um, and my daughter was messing with them and they snapped on her finger and bruised her finger and it was really painful, right? And I'm not mean, so I wasn't like, "I told you so." But I did say, "Please don't touch them. They're so powerful, now you know." Well, a few minutes later, my daughter's fine, and we're talking about natural disasters and what's more possible than others, right? And so I was like, they're little kids. So I was like, "Well, you know, um, we probably won't get a tornado here like we would have in Kentucky when we lived there. So, what's the most possible dangerous thing that could happen?" And my 8-year-old said, "Well, an earthquake." And then I asked Ada, my youngest, who's just turned 6, and I said, "What do you think, Ada?" And she says, "Magnets." And she said magnets because technically magnets had hurt Kindle more than all the earthquakes we've experienced. So technically, she was right. Magnets were more dangerous than earthquakes at that moment. And then the other day, we built their beds inside the big house that we are in, and on this mountain, this old house, we built these really strong beds. And I said, "Okay, if there's an earthquake and you're not outside, go ahead and get under your beds. If you're in bed, just hop out of your bed and get under." And I put like carpets under there and stuff because they like to play under their beds. And my daughter, who's 8, said, "Well, can I bring my bear and my pillow and my blanket?" I was like, "Well, no, you don't have that much time. So grab your bear and get under the bed." And then Ada says, "Yeah, grab your bear, get under the bed, and enjoy the ride." So out of the mouths of babes, and that's the truth. That's what's happening to us around this power dynamic. Grab your bear, grab your comfort, get into and under and with the earth, and enjoy the ride. Watch all this crumble, knowing that when it finally gets down to the bottom, we'll all be ready to implement all the cool stuff we've been wanting to implement. Local financial systems. Nobody's going to play with a financial system unless all the ATMs start working. And then, bam, everybody's going to totally show up to your meeting because they're going to want to know how to meet their needs, right? Or, assembly based local governance. When all the cell phones stop working for a while or the financial system has disappeared for a minute or whatever, people are going to want to know what's going on and who and or the best group, right? In the Ecuador here we have the assembly. It's called the fifth column, and the assembly has the right to audit any branch of government. The assembly is literally local towns and the most sort of conscious people getting together and helping make decisions. And that's more natural, that's more likely, and it is more powerful because it's less likely to fall apart. So local currency, local governance is the most safe way for us to move ahead because those things then aren't dependent on grand scale theatrics that you don't have any control over, right? And we were told that we had control because we voted representatives in, but I don't know if you've been paying attention. Those folks aren't representing us at all anywhere. So we need to work a little harder at involving ourselves in what feels right to you. Perhaps it is around food. I'm trying to start a community meal here every week, trying to find a place for that, working ahead for these things. Trying to put in place a virtue based system that when people are ready, it'll be there to roll right out, right? And one that covers both the physical and online transactions. You need both. Can't just go online for this stuff. You need to be able to have in hand stuff, right? Because if that whole thing collapses at any point, even if it's for days or a week or longer, you want to be able to function as a culture, as a society, as a community. So I've been studying this particular stuff for a really long time and got put in charge of a council on an alternative financial system for this town here, Vilcabamba in southern Ecuador. And basically, my job is to synthesize information, come up with a standard, and then be able to translate that standard for the local Ecuadorian farmers and families, the taxi drivers, the expats, the young families who just moved here, the tourists, all these different kinds of people, landholders, who they need to know how they're going to be able to use such a thing to get their needs met, right? So that's really important to play with these ideas. And when I finally get something pulled together, I'm totally going to email it to all of you, or I'll post it here on YouTube, or both, because the more the merrier. All this should be open source. So let me actually move over into the technology that I was talking about earlier because it's pretty intriguing. It's all sort of Tesla tech. It's based in electromagnetics and ether physics. But basically, if you put quartz under pressure, it creates piezo frequency. And this frequency does several things. It causes the body to heal faster, which is so cool. So I'm actually going to try to make multiple size prototypes, and I want to make one that's actually wearable. But what it is a tube of stainless steel, and inside are magnets, powerful magnets, putting these chunks of quartz basically under a huge amount of pressure, right? And then on the inside as well are these pyramids of copper wire that are thick. And then on the outside of it, there's actually what looks like in the DNA shape copper wire also. And then all of that is put into a bigger tube that is actually allowed to be wet, an aluminum tube. And aluminum has an interesting way that it rusts. It rusts, and then that rust protects it. And all of this, of course, is then put underground, and the top of it is available above the ground. But it actually creates a huge electromagnetic field that protects the microbiome. And then it also makes food grow in much larger amounts, so the yield is higher. And then it heals the body, and it creates a protection against the radiation from space that's happening right now. And you have 30% more, really, because the electromagnetic field is 30% gone. And it's only happening faster. So, we're looking at a really interesting next 20 years, folks. And this kind of tech should be freely available and easy to play with. So, I need to ask my fellow teammates who helped me to develop this model if I can go ahead and put these blueprints up for you as an open source. And I will actually probably do a little presentation here on YouTube. But I need their consent because they helped me develop this with lots of concepts. So there's several different concepts all put into one. But this is the kind of stuff we used to build in ancient times, and that's what the pyramids are. They all made electromagnetic fields and negative ion fields that help protect us during the last 12,000 year shift and before that. So, there's even pyramids in Antarctica. Talk about a human history we don't know about. Geez. So we really need the true historians. And I might be one, but I'm not too worried about focusing on that. I think it's really important because you need to have an empowered history. You don't need to know exactly how you ended up as a slave. That's interesting, but you need to know about how humans have survived and thrived despite these giant shifts every 12,000 years, right? So that's what we're going to be looking at over the next year together is all these concepts. What's it going to take? And it takes a little bit of everything and a little bit of everybody's attention to make these things happen. So we're at the hour, which means that it's time for me to take your questions. And I just want to thank you again for being with me today and for praying for me and sending me loving energy and healings, because I can feel it now, even. And Indra's net, the real internet, and some people have been confused when I said this term, but Indra, Indra, Indra's net, it's an ancient concept. It comes from Sanskrit text that the whole of reality, besides being born of the primordial, which is the first dimension of consciousness, it then creates a relationship between all points of consciousness. And that's Indra's net. That's the second dimension. And all of you, we all need to be conscious of this network, um, this very dynamic yet pure light. So it's just the pure consciousness of individuals, not their baggage. And so this is good news for empaths because empaths are like, I don't want to feel the collective consciousness. What do you mean? I don't blame you. But this is different. This is just pure consciousness, right? So it's not going to be annoying or difficult. or dark. And instead, it's all these sort of points of light, and you're one of them. And when you give blessings or you think of a nice thing or you send a healing or maybe you turn your pain into light and give it out to all the people out there, you're actually running more light and information out on the net, the Indra's net, right? And this is the nice net. This is the network where you are like totally celebrated for being there. Like, oh my gosh, we're so glad you're here. We love you. You are beautiful. Wouldn't that be nice to be able to go on the internet, the fake internet, and be celebrated and loved instead of being sold to and stolen from, right? Or told how ugly you are and how you need all this special face cream or stupid shit like that. Um but the Indra's net is different because you're celebrated automatically and you're already part of it. I'm just bringing your consciousness to it, and you access it by sort of falling back into it because it's there. It's this beautiful net of consciousness that catches you and says, oh, we're so glad you're here. You're so welcome here. Everything you learn is important. Thank you so much for being here and learning. Because everything you learn also goes out onto the net. And that is really important because you don't have to go teach classes or write books if you don't have time or energy to do that. But the things you learn are still available because DNA is a transmitter receiver of all these kinds of information via Indra's net. And this net has been there way longer, obviously, since the beginning of time. It's pure, it's palpable, and it helps you to feel supported during these times where you're going through reckonings and shifts and changes. So that's really important and key is to be able to recognize that's there for you, that that's constantly supporting you, that when you don't know something, it's actually available via Indra's net, the grand consciousness of the universe, not just humanity. Humanity's like this cool part of it. And there's so many other humanoids in this galaxy too. So you're part of that too. And then you're part of the galactic playing field with all these amazing planets and stars and things. And then you're part of the Lana field, these bigger structures of galactic movement, all the way to the edge of the universe. This is your playing ground. And then, of course, there's the void. The void's my favorite playing ground because it's so still and perfect. And there's no movement. You don't have to do anything because you already are the clear light of existence. It's a very peaceful place to be. It's one of the best. It's a little terrifying for the ego, but if you take your spirit there, you'll find what I mean, a precious stillness, a calm, a joy that is endless bliss. And then you don't have anything to worry about because that's home. You can be at home while still being a human. That's what we're here to do, is to embody all of that. Get access to the 12 dimensions again. Bring in as much light and amazing information available, and then up level and evolve and become Homo luminous. So that's the job at hand. So, that being said, I'm here to take questions for the next, probably about 40 minutes or so, and then we're going to do a meditation. So I'm going to kind of back up in all these comments. Amazing. Super nice to see everyone commenting and just really loving that. Jonathan says, I've been experiencing one who feels intense suffering, madness, punishment, pain, but fears to come here again into the body. Feel like I'm rescuing this body, bringing it back into presence. As the body comes back to alignment, there's a lot of physical pain. I think that's really important. And yes, I would agree. We're kind of rescuing the human race, really, but it starts with you, and you must do it for yourself, right? And so it's sort of that same concept of put the oxygen mask on yourself first. And so keep asking yourself each day, keep talking to your body. Hey, body, what do you need today? How can I love you better? How can I pay attention to what you need? What structures do I need to attend to? What wounds are in me? How is my body needing to align and move and stretch? And as you navigate through this chaos of consciousness, recognizing that you're heading towards the inevitable and that the inevitable is so big you can't miss it. You just have to keep moving and stay in the body. And that's the key. It's not easy to do. This is not an easy time, right? So it's not an easy time, but it's really an important time. It's the most vital time for the human race now. And the fact that you're staying in the body, trying your best to nourish it, trying your best to align it, continuing to meditate and do processing means you are heading the right direction and doing the best that you can. So that's really key. I'm just kind of sorry going through comments here. Yeah, I definitely have a Taoist approach, Lisa, as well as a Buddhist and a little paganism thrown in there and some Byzantine concepts and um it's kind of a fun collection of information, and my lineage from my teacher is tantric Buddhism from Tibet. So there's that too. And a little bit of everything. That's an anthropological way of doing it, right? And so just noticing everyone, you know, being present, a lot of people going through pain too. Caroline says, so I'm getting from this that we can absorb pollutants such as glyphosate and not have it have any negative effect on the body. It just depends. Glyphosate's one thing, but it breaks down into compounds that are not good for the environment. Avoiding it, of course, I think is the best way that you could, but it's really hard to do, especially in the United States. And they do use glyphosate here, unfortunately. And we've had to try to sort of reteach our Ecuadorian neighbors how to do things the way their ancestors did, which really annoys them when I don't know, white American shows up, USA person. You can't call yourself an American here because everybody's an American. Um, you have to say, I'm from Estados Unidos. So y- that's really kind of a interesting thing that has occurred. Here we escaped Kentucky with all of this spraying going on and coming in and having to speak to our neighbors and say, please don't do this. It destroys the land, and Elizabeth's allergic to it. And I think, though, one of the best ways to get rid of toxins in the body is to eat fruit because fruit has light water in it. And light water is non toxic water that hasn't been stagnated or perturbed by pollutants. Fruit on its own takes water and transforms it. So, if you're trying to sort of detox the body, bring in way more fruit, like a lot more fruit into your system. And that light water has a dramatically hydrating and powerful clearing and detox effect to get these chemicals out of the body. And if you have heavy metal in your body, be eating cilantro every day, coriander, fresh coriander slash cilantro, and zeolite clay combined will actually absorb very slowly heavy metals out of the body. I was able to heal myself from extreme lead poisoning with just cilantro and zeolite or bentonite clay. And so those are some sort of easy things to consider. And so Dana's saying, how about teaching emotional processing? Actually, I'm really bad at teaching that. But I have tools for you. So in the description, under this video, if you click on the description, there's a little arrow. It's a white arrow. I think it's on the right hand side. But there's a link to a page of information. These are healing resources, and in one of them is called the Lifestyle of Light ebook. And I'm giving you some ebooks, my Healing the Three Minds ebook and the Lifestyle of Light ebook. In the Lifestyle of Light ebook, I actually bring through, I don't talk, I bring through what my teacher has taught, which is emotional processing. And she's far better at it than I am, doing it far longer, of course, and taught far more people. So if you want to know how that process works, it's a very specific method. Grab that information. Those ebooks are there for you, and other methods to heal, say, genetic trauma, for example. But I want to make sure you get that document. It's right under in the description of our video here. So some things I'm just not going to be the best at teaching. There's others who are far better than me. And eventually, when I do get better at it, Dane, I will teach it. It's definitely saved my life, these processes, but I'm still going through it. I'm still using these tools in ways that are new. So I feel like until I've done it long enough, and I've been doing it for about 20 years, I have another decade to go, I think, before I can say, all right, I got to some core wounds and was able to shift this stuff because I still have a lot to do. Um, but that's okay. And then Bridget's asking to do a meditation on Indra's net. Certainly, we can totally take a look at that in our meditation today. And so Janine's asking, how do you stop being an advocate without aiding the slaughter of the light? Well, that's when you have to come into, and if you're going from warrior to, in your case, Janine, what you're saying, the crone, which is the wise woman, or the grandmother energy, when you are not taking part in the war anymore, then it's up to us to train and teach people how to do it well and do it with grace and do it without creating bad karma, right? So we need to be warriors of compassion, warriors with mercy. And when we are able to share that with people, then it actually helps up level and bring a lot more warriors to the table. So that's where then you don't have to take part in the war or what is happening. You need to empower those who are in the light to stand up for themselves. And that's where humanity's at in general. So, if someone who's of the light gets, so called slaughtered, for example, um, that's because they drew this experience in. Part of our problem is that we have this fear of death, and that is not what you should be afraid of. It's slavery that you should be afraid of. So, death is wonderful. Are you kidding me? It's the process of getting there that sucks. Um, and we don't want to deny people their experiences either. And yeah, we do want to preserve life. So, by preserving life, and doing our best to preserve, we often have to destroy certain things to preserve others. That's important. So part of it is that we think that we're going to end up in this situation where there's nobody fighting and there's no, us and them, and there's no war anymore, and that's not realistic. There's always movement and power dynamics that happen in this universe. It's complicated. We need to be able to navigate it with grace and power and neutrality. And that neutrality is really key because it means that you don't need to get involved in everything, every fight you see, but elevating the people who are trying to do things like maintain and preserve freedom, or maintain and preserve speech, or maintain and preserve local communities, or these kinds of things. Maintain and preserve children and their health. Well, then you need to elevate and empower those people who are going to maintain that. So if you're not going to do the war anymore, then teach the people. That's certainly what I've learned. Um, yes, and including all the animals, for example, in this whole power over dynamic. We need to really seriously look at that. This whole thing around animal husbandry has gotten way out of hand, and we certainly eat far too much meat in general in the West. Um, and you don't really need that much. That's kind of the problem of the Western privilege is this whole, hey, we're going to have meat every day. You don't need to do that. Your body doesn't want that. It wants fruit first. Wants fruits and vegetables first. So leaning towards an ancient diet is the smartest way to go. But those ancient diets were very natural, and they were rarely getting that much meat, and they when they would, it was a very specific, type of wild, happy animals that they would be taking part in. So we really do have to rethink all of this, and we will. That's part of the New Earth process. But I like to start with fruit first because your body really processes that light water wonderfully. It's a very ancient esoteric concept, too, to lean on that as the basis of your food. Thankfully, in Ecuador, we have an abundance. And so Penelope's asking about how do you resolve the indigenous road blockage situation because it's having a lot of negative effects on many people. Well, the indigenous know that this works to get their needs met because it's worked. And if you want to solve the problem, then you have to be down at the table with everybody else and actually talk about the problems and then resolve them together. You have to participate. And, those of us who stand back and say, I wish all of you would figure it out, that's not going to work. So if I were you, Penelope, we might turn that question on, and I can turn it on myself and say, how can I help resolve this? And what I've decided is that putting my effort into an alternative local financial system that would actually help prices of goods be more viable for the people, then that's actually more what I can do to help solve problems. So, although I might not be able to say negotiate with the indigenous very easily, I can help implement or put in place and listen to what it's going to take for us to have more local, stable currency, which is part of why they're upset because inflation is now absolutely out of hand. Ecuador has decided to lean on the dollar, and they use the dollar here, the USA dollar. And because that was overprinted, now there's an incredible hyperinflation going on all over the world, and Ecuadorians don't put up with that. So they may end up putting in place a different currency altogether that's actually based on really good backed information and goods instead of fiat and basically fake nothing. So this is what's on the table, and we got to keep asking ourselves, what can I do to help solve these problems? Um, that's the first step, and it could be simple stuff like, well, I'm gonna get to know my Ecuadorian neighbors a little better. I have some extra food over here. Maybe I'll trade it with them, and then we can start talking a little more about what do they need and what do I need and what do they have that I need. And that's a good way to start bartering. Start bartering with your local people and bring the barter system back. That's actually a really great tradition of Ecuador is the barter system. They'd have barter days in the markets where people would who had been vending different vegetables and fruits and foods. They would just, instead of using money one day in a market, they'd all just barter with what they had. Very cool way to live. So bringing that back would help a lot as well. There's no one easy answer, and the demands of the indigenous are very powerful here, and they need to be listened to. And when they're not, this is what happens. So, this is a good example of the importance of the voice of the people, especially the indigenous. And they need to be honored and respected. And in Ecuador, they have a lot of power because of this um, great, well substantiated connection they have with the earth and the environment. So, um, the Deborah is asking, in the alternative financial system I'm talking about, what's the unit of account and your liquidity provider? That's not really how we're working, Deborah. We are getting even more basic than that. And when I have something that's viable for me to talk about well enough, I will happily talk to you about it and we'll do a video on it. Because anything that's going to work here in this town, because it's so diverse, it's the perfect place to actually experiment with stuff. Um, and we're actually working in a very different way, in a much simpler way. We're really getting down to brass tacks, as we might say in the United States. I sure appreciate and love everyone too. Thank you. Liz is asking, can you talk more about formlessness? For the last year, I've been feeling weaker, and it has to do with low blood pressure and hemoglobin. Are these ascension symptoms? Well, I'm not sure, Liz. It just depends on your situation, but it sounds like you're going through a lot. And that could make you so tired. So building the blood, is going to be key. I think building our systems, building the liver, we tend to lean on detox a bit too much. I think building up our systems from here on out is going to be the most important because we need to be strong, right? But formlessness is one of the last four ancient templates of wisdom. And the last four are formlessness, timelessness, the universe containing all things, and the void. And they all lead to one another. And these are sort of a little map in consciousness. So the reason why I'm sort of obsessed with formlessness is because it's leading me and has led me to some of the highest conscious states I've ever had. And so you can pick one. You can either work with timelessness, and the gift of timelessness is time, or you can work with formlessness, whose gift is form, because then you appreciate all the form around you. And when you're in timelessness, you really appreciate time, but they lead to each other. So if you pick timelessness or formlessness, you'll end up experiencing the other one. And when you have these both, you end up experiencing and feeling the whole universe containing all things. And then when you can feel the whole universe, you can then feel the edge of the universe, which is the void. And then when you put your consciousness beyond the universe, you end up in that blissful state of very high, clear light consciousness all the time because everything is perfect and it all goes home and it's all time and form are all part of the same thing. And you know, there's this really cool state of perfection that happens. So, timelessness and formlessness, the universe containing all things, and the void are like a little pathway in of themselves to be able to access clear consciousness and lots of light, lots and lots of light. So, that's the best sort of thing I could say to you right now. Just meditate on what I've said, Liz, and then make sure to bring in the fortification of the blood, the fortification of the organs in your case, and for all of us really. Thank you for asking that. Yes, so love it. For Ask Philip says, Caitlin Keat, she's been using the piezoelectric for ages, and so the Vibes Up products are wonderful. I use them too, and um, I highly recommend her stuff. She's amazing, and I love all of her things. I often buy them as gifts for friends. And that's her website's Vibes Up. Yeah, Caitlin's amazing. I'm glad you mentioned her. She's super amazing. And the things that the experiments that she's done are very cool. Um, and Elise is asking about addiction. So Elise, I'm teaching a class as part of my Quantum Healing Revolution series, and one of those classes will be about addiction and my very unusual take on addiction and how to heal it. I've never heard anybody talk about my perspective. I think it's pretty unique. Um, and I've been looking at addiction and PTSD for 20 years, 25 years, and try and work. I work with people who have addiction issues as well. So I've been experimenting with folks because I'm not a psychotherapist. I train psychotherapists in many different factors, but one of the things that I've discovered really is that addiction is not what it seems. And when we can sort of go back into our ancient history and understand how we used what are called the communions of the earth in a better way, we can shift addiction. So I have been experimenting with these concepts and I'm finally ready to actually teach about them because I feel like I've gotten good results with people. I don't like to share stuff unless I get good results first, and I've had enough good results over the years now that I'm willing to finally share it as a concept. And then all of you can practice with it and tell me how it goes. But that's kind of how I tend to work. I'm a scientist, so I find different pathways in consciousness and I experiment with them. And when they start working for enough people, then it's a thing. And so now I have more information. So join me for that class if you'd like. Not sure exactly which one it is, but I think it's like number 4 or 5. But that one will be special. And if you're on my email list, you'll get a heads up about it. And the first one, which is all about remote viewing and how to do it, is coming up this Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, USA time. So if that's interesting to you, I'll be sending an email out about that too. Each of them will be 47, or you can buy the whole package of all 7 of them. So I hope that you'll join me because it'll be very interesting. It's all about, these are the pieces that need to be put in place to do quantum healing work. And you can combine it, like I said, all of your other things that you do with what I'm going to teach. It's kind of just like a extra up level for whatever else you're doing, even just for your own family and even your pets. So it's very kind of special and important concept, I think, that's on the table for us, quantum healing, which is remote healing. It's very profound and powerful. And I've had great success with it for many, many years, at least a decade. Um, so Haman is asking, how do you create a permanent structure in the fourth dimension? Well, you need to actually make some basic things first. And so practice first with taking energies and then turning them into something else. So, like, I can take my pain now as a physical power because it's just pure power, right? Power is light and light is power. So, I take that and I actually envision it, you imagine it as like a ball of light. And so I do this pretty often. And I'll turn it into something. I can turn it into a gift. I can turn it into like a beautiful crystal dolphin and give that to my friend Haman today. Or I can turn it into a pearl and give it to Source and say, Source, take this and do cool stuff with it. I'm going to give it back. I'm going to give this power back to you. And Source will do beautiful things with it. Or I can give it as like a blessing, right? So maybe my sister, she needs some support, and I'll bless my sister with the same light of my pain and maybe turn that into sparkly stars that wrap her in love, right? So you got to start there, changing energy, transmuting it into new things. And then you can start to take your own energy and build stuff. So start small, right? Maybe you start with a single room or I started when I was a kid. Um, I didn't realize what I was doing, but It was very profound as I got older because it always remained. But I made a secret garden with like a Victorian style rose garden. And I was obsessed with the Victorian era because I had a really powerful lifetime there. But the like a whole tea area and stuff like that, and a fountain. And but I made that, and I consistently put effort into it every day. I'd say, what kinds of roses exactly do I want, in what order? What exactly does my fountain look like? How does it feel when I touch it? What does this pathway feel like when I'm walking on it? So I'm using other senses. How does it all smell? It smells amazing. How does it really, what's the temperature? Is it sunny all the time? And so in the fourth dimension, which is the dimension of the dream realm, you can create these refuges. And so that was my first refuge, and I still have it. Because every time I think about it, bam, I'm there and I can touch and interact with it. But I put a lot of effort and detail into it. So maybe if you have your own big castle, you're going to have to think pretty carefully about what you want in each room. How does it really feel? How does it smell? What does it taste like? And use your other senses to create these spaces. And then meditate there. Imagine sitting in the Victorian rose garden with me and us meditating together with all the light of the roses and the sun coming down and the smell of the garden. And be there, spend time there. And that's the trick. That's it. So you got to learn how to transmute energy into things that are smaller first, and then you do a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and then you let it be permanent, where anytime you imagine it, bam, you're there. And that's what it takes. So it takes a lot of imagination and effort, but your imagination is your third eye. And you all do this anyway because you're often imagining things. So you have access naturally using your third eye to the dream realm all the time. And that's available to you. So that'll be fun to play with. I hope that helps. All right. So um, Iris is asking, I'm interested in this quantum healing class. I've been doing body work now for 9 years, very physical. I'm looking to go deeper. Iris, you're the perfect person because this stuff's hard on the body when you're doing the physical healing. When you can start to do the quantum healing, even in person, and you can begin to even do it far away and practice. I do quantum healing on people on the other side of the planet regularly, and it's instant because you're using Indra's net. So you're you're not that far away in comparison. It seems like 10,000 miles away is a big deal. It's not. It's not at all. And you have access to all beings and all consciousness all over this entire universe. So by using that ability, you can actually do massage work or healing work or weave light into people's bodies anywhere in the world. So this will open your market up. That's for sure. And then doing it in person is also very profound. It can be very beautiful what happens. You're the exact type of person I would love to teach, Iris, because then you can combine these things and even find later in your life when you're not able to do the physical part so easily, you'll still be able to do this work because you won't have to expend such physical energy to do it. So come join me. I hope you'll come. Christy says, I learned about Lucia Renee, who's my teacher, from you, and I've taken her courses on emotional processing. So powerful. Also, the Marriage of Spirit from Leslie Temple Thurston. And absolutely, Christy's quite right. Those are the two superpowers of emotional processing. Lucia Renee, my teacher, and her website is luciarene.com. And she has emotional processing tools for you there. And then grab that book, The Marriage of Spirit from Leslie Temple Thurston. Very deep mental processing, all about polarities and duality, but they're very handy. It's very handy as a structure to understand and quickly assess what the next thing is that you need to work on. So those two combined, that's what I use every day, all day long, and it works beautifully. Um, Good. So Milena agrees. Freedom's the key. I'm so glad. Yes. And so Boel is asking, I keep seeing a tightly knit ball of darkness and light, deeply entangled, but not yet merging, right? Well, I'm not sure where you're seeing this, Boel, but if we're talking about consciousness in general, when I look at darkness, if you look very carefully and closely at it, it's made of light, but it's put under pressure. And so I think you might be seeing sort of what's going on in human consciousness. There's a lot of people who've sort of bought into the power over dynamic and the me dynamic. And then there's the people who haven't. And there's quite the entanglement going on between victim, tyrant, blah, 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 all this stuff going on. Well, eventually, this is going to end because it's all going to get revealed. This sort of truth is being revealed. That's what the clear light, the second wave of consciousness coming at the end of this year, the wave we're in right now is putting us under a lot of pressure. It's revealing a lot for you. It's structure hitting structure, but the clear light's going to shatter any illusions and projections, and that's coming at the very, very end of the year after the winter solstice in the north. And so, the entanglement of light and dark will have to end because it it can't survive such a blow of clear light. So we'll see what happens to that ball of consciousness. Daki says, speak about what you call shop talk. For me, it's the cornerstone of emotional processing. It's very empowering. Homo luminous chit chat, an experiential foundation of building a new inner culture. Absolutely. And that's why I tend to, even in, I got invited to a little dinner party last night and we were talking about very high level concepts. Um, I, my teacher jokingly says, how come you never talk about the weather? Because I am trying to navigate this consciousness with you, and I'm compelled by the nature of my soul to act as a flashlight and to sort of be a couple of steps ahead, not that far because most of you are probably older than I am. Um, but because I've sort of spent most of my life looking at this, and because I have had the gift of being a super psychic, I kind of can't help it. I'm always looking at the dimensions and consciousness. I'm thinking about this stuff while I'm doing dishes and cooking dinner. I don't stop. I dream about it. I wake up thinking about this stuff. This is this is a lifestyle, right? And it's very intense. It can be exhausting, right? I do have to take breaks, but I take breaks by meditating and by taking a hike, and going and checking on the animals on the farm or picking fruit. But this is a way of life, yes. And we need to be able to talk about our experiences without judgment. People need to be able to say, is this ascension symptoms or is this just my blood? What is going on? Have you experienced anything like this? What about you? What about you? This is important. And I think it's quite right that we sort of reignite. We need to inject more powerful, conscious, philosophical questions and discoveries into our daily life. Don't be afraid to speak about these things anymore, you know, and people might think you're pretentious at first. They certainly did when I was in Kentucky. I couldn't talk about stuff very easily because they thought I was being pretentious, unfortunately. And that's okay. It was part of the culture. They were projecting that on me. Um, but I found people to talk to. And so seek that out through your conversation, through what you put out through the voice. You will bring people in who will be like, this happens to me regularly, like in a coffee shop. Every single time I'm in a coffee shop, I'll be talking about this stuff, and somebody will come over and say, this was the most interesting conversation to eavesdrop on. Can I join you? And the table gets bigger. So you'll be surprised. Be willing. Be willing to talk about this stuff openly. You might attract new friends. I guarantee you will. Good. Um, oh yes, and Jonathan's quite right. Pamela Wilson, Lucia Renee, my teacher, she learned from Pamela Wilson and then sort of added on to the things that Pamela teaches. But Pamela's absolutely the mistress of self inquiry, deeply divine, feminine, intuitive understanding of human consciousness. Wonderful lady. So, three fabulous powerhouses for emotional work. Pamela is one of them. Excellent. And so, very good. Let's go into our replay. And very happy to have everyone here and to be able to answer some questions. I'm going to have a sip of coffee here. Sorry. Um, and soon, oh, this is kind of fun because you're my friends. I'd like to share this with you. I'll be moving at the end of the month permanently to the mountain, and I'll be able to show you what it looks like. So I'm hoping that the next videos that I do I'll be able to actually do a few outside, I hope, so I can show you what it looks like and you can have some blasts of light from the power of Ecuador. I'm really excited because right now, if I put my computer outside, you're just gonna see everybody's houses, and it's not that fun. But I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I don't have any neighbors out where I'm moving, and so I want to show you, and I'm gonna take more video with my cell phone. And I was thinking about trying to get a GoPro. That cracks me up. It's gonna be so funny. And take you on a hike up this mountain, and hopefully we'll get to meet some beautiful beings up there. But I want to take you, I want to show you what this place is all about and give you a blast of light. So that's on my mind, and it has been for months. And I'm in the middle of moving right now. So when things settle down, I'd love to show you, what does a 100-year-old Ecuadorian house look like? And these kinds of fun things, in hopes that perhaps one day you'll come to visit me, and we can do some retreats and things here. There's incredible healers in Vilcabamba, some of the best in the world, absolutely world class. And it's such a special place for healing and transformation. I will continue to invite you, and I have had many clients and friends come to see me. So um, don't let anything stop you. This is a miraculous place, and it's really not that hard to get to. It's a 4 hour, 4.5 hour plane ride from Miami, or Atlanta, or Fort Lauderdale, from the U.S. So it's not too bad when it comes to visiting. And then eventually, in the next, if things settle down and open up a little more, I'm going to come up to the U.S. and teach some workshops. And I might try to come to the UK, because I love teaching in person. It's so much fun. I absolutely adore it. So I really do want to do that. And I'm just hoping that things will settle. And if they don't, that's okay. Thankfully, we still have ways to connect. So I just wanted to share that with you. And maybe we can meet my horses too. Very special beings, all of these animals. All right, so let's come down into our bodies here. We're going to do a meditation together. I just want you to be conscious first of your feet. Oh, we underestimate the feet. The feet are so cool. They're really quite big too. Your foot is as long as your forearm exactly. Isn't that wild? We don't imagine our feet being that big, but they are. And in Tai Chi, you kind of recalibrate your vision of yourself, where your feet are bigger and your hands are half the size of your feet, so that you have a better version of yourself, a concept, so that you can have more balance. So I just want to bring your attention to your feet, how many nerves there are, all these nerve endings. And we want to allow Mother Earth and her energy to come up through the feet as a gift. She's always giving you support, she's always holding you in her light. And so just bringing again attention to the feet a little bit. And then let some of that light coming from her point on Indra's net, this very pure light. All the consciousness on Indra's net is white light. It's full of power and information. White light has all the information of all qualities of light. And so that's what we are working with. And then let that light move up like a rainbow up your legs, and let it come up through the knees and the thighs. And if you're in any sort of resistance, just take a deep breath. And now let it come into the hips and the root. Let this white and rainbow energy move into the hips and the root. It should be kind of warm and comfortable. And now let it come up through the navel and rise up like filling up a glass, right? Filling up a cup. Let it hit the solar plexus. Just welcome the power of Mother Earth into your power, because your body is acclimated and aligned with this planet specifically. And we might say, I open myself up to the power of the earth. And then take a deep breath. Now let it rise up into the heart. Let it fill the field of the arms and the hands. I welcome the power of the earth into my heart, into what I do and what I make. Let the rainbow energy move through your fingers. Let it come up now into the high heart and the throat. Let everything that I say and all my compassion be strengthened by the light of the earth. Let it move through the spine, all the way up to the back of your neck. Allow myself to feel supported by the power of the earth. Now let it come up through your face and all of your senses, and then up and out your crown like a fountain, all the way around in the inner and outer fields of your body with a deep breath. Let all my thoughts be influenced by the light and power of the earth. Now feel the stillness happening in your body. Your body wants this specific light. And now take a deep breath and imagine yourself falling backwards into a net that's going to catch you. A net of white light with little points of beautiful light on every little connection. A complex net. A net that has patterns but also is diverse and interconnected. And fall back into it. Be caught by it. And then let yourself become a point of light on that net. And look around you and see just how many other points have connections to you, trillions upon trillions of connections all around you. Just feel them. Take a deep breath. And then reach out with your heart to everyone on the call and all of your soul family out there in the world, all the animals and plants that you love and care about, all the pieces of peaceful places on this planet. They're there too. All the elementals, all the angelic, all the beings of light. You see how far they go? How many they are? You are like a galaxy. There's so many beings connected to you, trillions upon trillions of beings. All of your star family, everybody's there. And they're all saying, I want you to hear this. We are so glad you're here. And then feel it move. It does move in a spiral fashion. And there's lots of movement. There's waves of movement. There's little eddies and there's little beautiful uh, energies that move great large amounts of consciousness too. Everything's moving and dancing as a network, a living network. This is Indra's net. You feel how supported, so much gladness and joy for your presence and all the things that you're present with and love. Let's just stay here for a moment in the stillness. Feel how still you are while everything is also simultaneously moving, but in a positive way, in a joyful dance. That's the Maya, the dance of the universe. This universe is always moving. That's the cool part about being in a universe. And take another deep breath. Let any tension in your body release through the breath. Give the tension and the pain as a gift to the network. Here, I have all this energy for you. Take it and play with it. Turn it into cool stuff. Beautiful. All right, this last configuration is coming up for you. I want you to bring your attention to your heart. Let there be some of this natural rainbow white light move from your heart out the front and the back of your body, all the way to the edge of the universe, and then out the sides of your heart, all the way to the edge of the universe. So you feel really solid and connected. And now the core of light, which goes up and down, I want you to have the core of light go all the way up to the center of the universe from the top of your head at the 0 point at the center of the universe. Just imagine it. And then let it go down out the bottom of the root down to the core of the earth, the heart of the earth, and just connect there. And take a deep breath. And then from the hips, I would like you to do the same thing. Let light come out the front of the pubic bone and out the back of the tailbone to the edge of the universe. And then light out of the sides of your hips to the edge as well, so that you feel stabilized. And take a deep breath. And lastly, light out of the third eye, out of the back of the head, and the sides of the temples to do the same thing. Go all the way out to the edge of the universe. Your head will feel really stable. Good. And one last deep breath. And we're going to say, Dear heart, please allow me to feel connected to Indra's net. Please maintain this configuration of light and stability in my body today indefinitely. Thank you. And take a deep breath. And now I want you to give a gift to the earth. Perhaps some kind of hurt or pain, could be physical, emotional, or mental. I want you to find it in your body right now. So I have a wound of friendship in my heart that I'm going to give as a gift. And for me, it's a very hot red color. Feels like having your heart stabbed when you have problems with friends, right? So I offer this as a gift, and you want to take the energy out. I want you to feel it first in the body. Find it in your body. It could be anywhere. Give it a color. Let it have a color or a form, something that you can imagine. And then allow it to be seen in your hands. Perhaps it looks like a sphere. For me, it looks like a ruby red heart. Perhaps it is a different sort of object. Maybe it looks like metallic or heavy or like a rock or something like that. It could be physical pain too. That might have a color as well. Discomfort of some kind, some sort of trauma. And now I want you to transform it. And so I'm asking it to become pure, unconditional love so that it becomes like a silken pink energy, a light that's very formless. And I'm giving this as a gift to the earth. Mother Earth, I offer you the transformed wound of friendship in my heart as a gift of unconditional love to you and all beings who have been such wonderful friends over the eons. Thank you. And you can do the same. Decide what you want it to be, what kind of gift, and offer it to the earth as a gift. Let it be so. Excellent meditation. Very fun and beautiful and active, an active meditation. And now, of course, you can use these tools and this configuration from here and bringing in more light, working with light, turning things into light. It's a wonderful thing that humans can do. And so I just bless you, my friends. I bless you with grace. I bless you with the love that I have for you, for humanity, which is endless and unconditional. And I bless you also with my gratitude for helping me so much for multiple months get through deep, deep shifts that I needed to do for everybody. Anything we go through is for all consciousness. And so, thank you. Thank you for being with me today. I really enjoyed it. I've missed it so much. I can't wait to do it again on the mountain with you at the end of next month. And so, I believe that our next call will be July 29th. And of course, this Quantum Healing Revolution course begins this coming Tuesday on June 28th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, USA. You can purchase that on my site for $47. And I'll be sending you, of course, the replay as well as part of that. So I hope that you'll join me. if that appeals to you. And you can find that on my site, seerandscientist.com under offerings. Now, if you have any trouble at all with that store, let me know. Email me. You can email me through my site if you need to. If there's any issues, just let me know. Because I've had some random issues with my store, but they seem to be fixed, I think. And if it doesn't work right away, try a different browser. Stuff's going on with tech, so these sort of things happen. If you have any trouble, just let me know and I can help you. We'll work it out. And I sure appreciate you and love you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being alive. Thank you for being you. And I love you so much. We'll talk very soon. Bye, my friends.